I feel like that fucks with our.
Really?
Nothing.
We're going live and you do that? All right. This is Preston part 2 of Letters from a Stoic. This book is, remember, this is the one we're reading. It's the Capstone Classics edition. Andrew already screwed up this algorithm, so nobody's going to watch it anyways, but whatever. The first episode was a couple weeks back. We did letters 1 through 5, and now we're doing 6 through 10. So if you've already watched the first part, you know how this goes. If you haven't watched the first part, welcome to Preston part, where we cover sections of a book as we roll through it instead of a whole book all at once.
Yes.
And Andrew selected the first book we're doing in this series. It's Letters from a Stoic by Seneca, advisor to Nero, and lots of other famous things he did. However, that's not what we're covering today. We covered that in the last episode. You want to know more about Seneca? Look at the last episode. I'll link it in something that you can find.
Yep.
All right, so we're just going to get right into it. Chapter 6, which is letter 6, and it is titled On Sharing Knowledge.
Yes.
Did you want to roll into your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I thought this was good how he did it, because I think, one of his big points was no good thing is pleasant to possess without friends to share it. So
that was your takeaway on that?
Well, he has this whole thing about he's still kind of rolling from the previous letters with the concept of friendship.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like he also had one cannot lack a friendship when drawn into an alliance of honorable desires, because they have all the things in common, sharing in life and learning from. Wait, one second. Yeah, because you can't lack for friendship if you're brought together with those common honorable desires, because you share a lot of things in common, type of deal. Inherently, you'll have friends and comrades, I guess is how he views it.
Sure. Sharing in all things in common, especially their troubles. Okay, I see what you're saying. This is not the one where he says the words that are kind of like the words of the Bible, where they talk.
No, that's a different one.
Okay,
but in this one,
it's got a similar feel to it, though.
Yeah, in this one, he also talks about how sharing in life and learning from displayed character beats education.
So, yeah, I mean, this one quote right here, I think, captures what you're saying really well. However you pronounce this guy's name, I would say Cleanthes, could not have been the express image of Zeno if he had merely heard his lectures. He shared in his life, saw into his hidden purposes, and watched him to see whether he lived according to his own rules. I mean, this is textbook, don't follow a hypocrite 101.
Yeah.
It's like, live as you live as they live. You know, I mean, really, if you want to know more about yourself, look at the friends you keep.
It's more than that, too. I think it's one of those things where, without really saying it, he's talking about how all these, because it's all these philosophies, right, on how to live.
Mm-hmm.
He's talking about, it's like, okay, yeah, all of these things, they all these schools of thought, because throughout this process, he likes to steel man others and like compliment them where they have the same like root truths that they're using, but then we'll go into like how their conclusions are incorrect and everything, instead of trying to say they're just hot garbage.
Which a lot of people could learn from in an argumentative manner. Like if you want to tear down somebody's ideas, you have to at least give them credit for their good ones.
Well, it's not about the ideas. It's about the recognitions that what they're saying is a problem or like a fundamental truth. It's like, that's not your ideology per se. That's just literally a truth, right?
What I'm saying is if you can't find common ground with somebody you're arguing with, they won't find common ground.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But what he's really getting at here, though, is you could listen to you could just read whatever they're saying, right? You could just listen to the lecture or whatever. But if you don't analyze how that person's philosophy actually impacts how they live, you're not going to, learn it properly or see the true impact of it. And I think that's where a lot of people get twisted, even in this day and age, right? Things sound pretty words, it's like, oh, that's a utopian concept over here, and it sounds wonderful and amazing, so why don't we do it? And then you realize that based off of how that person actually lives their life, that's not how it actually comes to be. You know what I'm saying? There's a disconnect between the ideology and the lived experience of the people who believe that.
No, I think you're right. I think it also, I mean, really, why does Socrates get killed while preaching his philosophy? What is it? He riles up the youth, right? Mm-hmm. So those youth, they live with him. You know, people like Plato, they lived with him, learned from him, and passed that on. So really, I mean, it's twofold. If you don't have people living with you, learning from you, doing what you do, then there's no one to carry that on and pass that on. Vice versa, if you're not learning from somebody else, then you can't carry on anything.
Yeah, and this is really this letter is him kind of conditioning the reader into the next couple letters, I would argue, because he's trying to get at that crux of the issue where it's just like your friends should be people that you've formed an alliance with due to the shared values, shared mission, right? All of that stuff. And then there should be the it's about how you actually sharing in life and you will learn from others type of thing. So he's trying to prime you on the importance of the company you keep.
Absolutely. Is there anything else you want to say about that one?
No, I mean, this letter's short. This is like a really short one compared to some letters that he writes. So
I'm not sure if you guys noticed that ticker on the bottom. I'm experimenting with some new ideas here.
Chris is distracted, folks. He's not really talking.
No, so what I'm trying to do is play the title and the letter number on the bottom, at least for a minute, so I can timestamp it easier and figure out where we're at. But I want to make sure that you guys know where we're at and what we're talking about. So if you tune in at any point, you'll know.
Yeah. No, I don't think there's anything else to say about this letter. It's very straightforward, but it's still, even though it's on sharing knowledge, it's talking about sharing knowledge with like friends,
people to carry on the legacy.
I
mean, really, it could also be applied to children.
I mean, your community in general. I think it's a community builder of like, if you have something that's good, right? It's a good, you should want to share it.
Yeah. And one way you can do that is by having children to pass on the legacy to. I would say that one of the quickest things you learn as a parent is, and this can apply to a parent, a mentor, a teacher, whatever, but the first people to notice hypocrisy are the people closest to you. The first people to notice slip-ups are the people closest to you. So I think it's an easy measurement of somebody's philosophy, character, way of life to look at those closest to them and how they react to the things that people say.
Right.
Anyways, that's all I got left.
Yeah, no. All right, let's get into letter number 7. This is on crowds, and that's the only title.
I think I'm going to kill the scroll. I'm just going to leave it like that.
Okay, there you go.
Does that look better or worse? What do you think?
Looks better. It's more readable for the audience. All right. So the message of this letter is really to avoid crowds. That's the simple spark note. No, he says there is no person who does not make some vice attractive to us.
I mean, yeah, because he uses the Colosseum as the prime example.
Yeah, so he says there is no person who does not make some vice attractive to us or stamp it upon us or taint us unconsciously.
Yeah.
So what he's saying is it's like there's always going to be one person out there who, because of how they partake in some activity, will make it seem appealing.
Oh, yeah.
Just like an example would be how they've always done advertising. Think of all the celebrity endorsements for different products.
Yep.
How they'll try to make someone who's popular smoke cigarettes in a TV series, or they'll get someone to engage in something that the average person would say is a vice, right? and that will convince other people that that's the cool thing to do.
I would say the one thing to add to what you're saying is that the quickest way to diminish your individual self-value is to join a crowd, because it's super easy to incite a crowd to a cheer that you may or may not even agree with.
Yeah, and then his other point was, he gets into that too. He says, it is too easy to side with the majority.
Right.
Those around us influence our thoughts. So he says, surround yourself with good influences.
I mean, really, this applies to what I said earlier. If you want to get a good image of yourself, look at the friends you surround yourself with.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where mob mentality is a legitimate thing.
It is. Oh yeah.
You get enough people just hyped up in it. If you can control the first so many rows of the crowd, you control the entire direction that everyone behind you walks in, because they're just following whoever's at the front.
Well, I mean, think about it. When a cheer starts in a crowd, how does it start? You get one person who goes, I don't know, for example, you're at a college, right? You go, letter. And
or someone starts the wave.
Or somebody starts the wave. I mean, really, the crowd behaviors almost take control, almost like the legion of ants in a colony.
Well, okay. When people make the analogy that everyone's a bunch of sheep,
they're not wrong.
They're not wrong, because
people inherently want to be on the in crowd.
Well, they want to, but you're like, okay, let's look at, we've seen a lot of protests and marches over the course of the last 10 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most of those marches and those crowds are 100% controlled by the first 3 rows of people.
Plus, the elevation of activities are controlled by whoever's in front of you. So, like, if the person in front of you decides to go and break into a building, the next people are more likely to do the same thing.
Yep. Like, literally, the entire decision making is at the head of that line, that march. And the people at the back are just mindlessly following it, channeling the same energy as it progresses.
If you're not the leader, joining a crowd is a bad decision.
Being in a crowd is always a bad decision.
But if you're there's a distinct difference, Andrew. If I am leading something, I have control over it to an extent.
Yes and no.
To an extent. But there's always the danger of the messianic complex of like Dune, where you start a movement that you have no control over.
Well, what I was going to make the comment, Chris, is I'm talking about just a crowd in general. Yeah. It's extremely dangerous to be at the front of that crowd if there's somebody who wants to cause a panic, because that's where you get trampled in more ways than one, right? If you're the nail that's sticking out, that's who they hammer, right? So if
you're leading the protest, you're the most likely to go to jail.
Yeah. And it's also one of those things too, though, where if you're just innocently walking away at the front of a crowd and someone causes panic at the middle of it or towards the rear, and you can easily have a stampede moment. And I think I would argue that that's the case in a lot of things. Most revolutions lead to the person at the front of the crowd being eaten alive by whatever movement got started. You know what I'm saying? So the stampede effect, and there's really no good location to be in a crowd, I would argue. So to avoid, on crowds, avoid crowds. That's the best advice you could ever hear. Seneca just flat out says it: avoid them, never join them.
I mean, mob mentality tends to be a very toxic and bad culture to follow, just period.
It's the most animalistic you will find people.
You could almost apply this to, well, really any dynamic where there's a large group of people identifying in a single thing. So, like, for example, if you're identifying with the political party in the United States,
the
second you say I'm a this or I'm a that, people assume you are toe-to-toe with every line in that group. Well, even if you're not.
The problem with crowds in general is that it's hive-mindish. Right. It becomes herd mentality, mob mentality. It really becomes this thing where it's supposed to be like a hive mind thing where you have a decision made and everyone's supposed to have exactly the same opinions. You've been lumped into these stupid coalitions with people that you don't even agree with at all on anything.
And half of them you don't know.
Yeah. So it's just a way to trap people on a course that they have, or they're not charting their own path forward. It's a trap. A crowd, it tends to be a trap. So yeah, I agree with Seneca completely. There's one thing of advice to take, and that is avoid crowds.
Yeah, I would say there is rarely ever a good reason to join a crowd.
And I would say this too. When he says those around us influence,
unless you're trying to blend in and get away from something.
Well, yeah, but okay, I'm gonna say this though, because he does talk about those around us influence our thoughts. So surround yourself with good influences.
Absolutely.
What he's saying though, it's like, okay, you can have a crowd of people around you, but the thing is, you need to be extremely discriminatory in discerning who you want, what type of people you want to surround yourself with.
Yep.
You don't want a negative influence. You don't want a criminal around you. You know what I'm saying? You don't want someone who's you have to watch your back around, and because that energy is going to just,
you don't want the wolf of Wall Street around your kids.
Yeah, basically.
But I think, was it this letter where he talks about there was a morally good person who went to the Colosseum?
Yes, this is the one where he talks about the Colosseum.
And basically the person was diminished down to cheering for this person's demise in the Colosseum after like 3 bouts of attending.
Yeah, I mean, it's really this thing where Seneca uses the Colosseum games, as the model.
A moral test?
No, I don't.
Or a model to show that morals degrade.
I think it's one of those things where he's using it to show that the extreme of how when you just join, you might disagree with the games in some capacity, like the brutality and all of that. Because the games at one time were a sporting event, right? Where they actually were fighting. They weren't like, they were there to have a legit survive, one person to try to survive, both people try to survive type of thing. It's not just like fastest way to kill each other. It was actually a contest of arms, right?
So boxing versus MMA.
Yes.
You have a progressively more violent style of fighting occurring.
And what he's saying is that this crowd, these people went there originally with this one concept in mind. And as the crowd of the Colosseum has progressed through time, it has become this thing where it's just like, okay, remove all armor from these fighters. The goal isn't for them to live. The goal is for them to, as quickly as possible, just slaughter each other.
Right.
In the most vicious way possible. Get as much blood as possible. And then, in between the games, bring some prisoners out, slit their throats type of thing. So it became this thing where the crowd just incessantly increases their baying for blood type of mentality. And I think you see that in all things.
You see it in television too. I mean,
I was going to say too, though, just like anyone who is viewed as like their opponent, they're just baying for them to be destroyed.
Oh yeah, people
whatever capacity, right? So he's showing that you stop being logical or reasonable in any capacity in a crowd, because it's just that mindset takes over. That's his extreme, like that's the example he uses.
Absolutely, I do agree with that. Do we want to move on to the next one?
Yeah.
All right. So the next chapter is on the philosopher's seclusion. Whoops, what is that? There we go. On the philosopher's seclusion. This is letter 8.
Yes.
Where this is our halfway to 3/5 of the way through this particular section here.
So,
go ahead.
Well, I was going to say he makes the whole point that you should indulge the body only so far as is needful for good health. Look at things functionally. Yeah. So, I mean, the whole thing here is he's talking about being a reasonable person.
Well, so like you could be one of the smartest people on the planet, but if you spend every day inside your house playing a video game instead of doing anything, you are benefiting no one, including yourself.
Yeah. But I mean, seclusion. The way he uses it is, I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase it, right? Because he also talks about a
Avoiding gifts of
philosopher.
chance.
Well, a philosopher passing knowledge to to future generations in seclusion does much. So like you can still do it if you're like you can seclude yourself from the world around you,
It's
and
avoiding crowds.
and like if you're writing out your knowledge to pass on to future generations, like that's the mission you took upon yourself. You're finding a way to still interact with people, but you secluded yourself from society to work on that mission. He sees value in that still,
Right, but I'm
but
talking about complete seclusion is not.
yeah, the punishment, like the self punishment seclusion of like, I'm trying to think. It's like where he says to indulge the body only so far as is needful, but he's saying for good health, right? He doesn't want you to go to the extreme where it's like you're starving yourself, you're denying yourself things that are beneficial.
I mean, it's content but not full. It's like
Yeah,
not filling your
I
stomach.
mean it's temperate, right? It's temperate, and it's not letting the
Yeah.
it's not allowing the seclusion to become the vice, because he has a lot of stuff in here where there's a stereotype of what it means to be a philosopher. And way too many people play act the philosopher instead of being the philosopher and living it right. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I like this ending line here. Despise everything that useless toil creates as an ornament, an object of beauty, and reflect that nothing except the soul is worthy of wonder. For to the soul, if it be great, naught is great. As in, if your
Yeah.
soul is a worthy soul, you don't need any worldly passions or whatever to be great. You're the outward, not even outward perception, the inner beauty of the human soul is reflected in the fact that this person needs nothing.
Mm-hmm.
This person can, like, whatever is needed will be provided, or they'll live without it.
Yeah.
Am I making sense? Because he basically says, like, you know, whatever fortune brings to you. Because I think fortune is like both a term of, you know, things that were given to you, and also a term of like, isn't fortune considered its own entity in Roman Stoicism?
Yeah. I mean, in
So it's
this
like
one,
it's like what's given to you can be taken.
right. And
We shouldn't worship objects.
he's also talking about this in a so when he says the body should be treated more rigorously, that it may not be disobedient to the mind.
He's talking willpower.
Yeah, it's about willpower. So he says, eat merrily to relieve your hunger, drink merrily to quench your thirst, dress merrily to keep out the cold, house yourself merrily as a protection against personal discomfort. It matters little whether the house be built of turf or various colored imported marble. Understand that a man is sheltered just as well by a thatch as by a roof of gold.
And I think in this case he's saying,
and that gets to the despise everything that useless toil creates as an ornament.
Right.
Yeah. That gets to that portion. So
he doesn't have an issue with people using their riches in a way that is useful. So like the gold roof will still prevent water. So like if you want to spend your money that way and get a gold roof, I guess go ahead and do it. But he's saying that both of those serve the same purpose, and one should not be valued above the other necessarily.
And as was discussed in previous letters too, he says to not make yourself so different as to make it where someone thinks that they have to be exactly like you in all of those. Like you're supposed to still represent yourself as expected in a certain extent to your station, right? If you're expected to wear a suit to work, you should wear a suit to work. That's the
perfect example of not following the culture that they represent is like, say, a senator who wears baggy sweatpants and a sweatshirt.
Yes.
Instead of a suit, which doesn't match the group he's within.
Yeah. It's he like I said, he has. It's one of those things where I think it's to try to encourage people to that the philosophy is successful. That if you are successful, you should live as if you are successful. You
Well, yeah,
shouldn't.
dress for success, right?
Yeah. It's just one of those things where it's just like, just because you don't have the silver goblet, right, doesn't mean you can't drink out of a wooden one and be like, it's that part isn't any different. That's just an ornament of to display success.
Ornaments of success do not equal success,
Yeah.
but success could get you ornaments of success.
Yeah.
But that shouldn't be the goal. The goal is to, basically need nothing, I guess.
The goal is to recognize that you have those things today and might not have those things tomorrow.
But what you
But
have
as
eternally is
long,
the soul.
yeah, but and as long as you're able to take care of your body and take care of your needs, then you have everything that you have every good that you need.
There's a verse in Sirach that basically says like the worldly riches are one is not rich from worldly riches essentially, but of the riches of the health of the body. So like, what's the point of having a bunch of gold if your body is so decrepit you don't do anything with it?
Right. And really that's, I mean, the way he's talking about a lot of this stuff when it comes to the ornaments of success and all that is that he's basically saying that it does you no good to just completely hoard things.
Well, yeah.
In the sense of like, oh, I'm just going to not spend any of this money to live the lifestyle that is expected of me and based on what I have. He's also saying not to live outside your means because the good you can afford is a good still. But yeah, I don't really have anything else on that letter.
Okay.
I don't know about you, but
nope, I'm good. The next one is philosophy and friendship.
yes.
Letter number 9. We're
Letter
4/5 of the
9.
way through. And this one is how many pages? We got one. This is a longer one.
This was a longer one. He gets into a lot of different things. But I'm trying to think of where the best thing is to where the best place to start is. Well, okay, he describes what an ideal wise man is, right? So ideal wise men feel troubles but overcome them.
I actually think the best there's a quote in this chapter that I think describes it the best.
Okay, I think we might be on the same page for where
we probably are. You on page 47?
Well, I took it down as a note. But
okay. So I guess here you go. This is my favorite quote in this entire book so far.
Okay.
Whoever does not regard what he has as most ample wealth is unhappy, though he be master of the whole world.
Yeah,
that is a very, very Stoic ideal that is compatible entirely with Christianity.
I was going to go with a different one.
That's my favorite quote in the whole book so far. I mean, he says it, he rephrases it in another way too, and he says, "A man may rule the world and still be unhappy if he does not feel that he is supremely happy. Unblessed is he who thinks himself unblessed."
Well, I also thought that another one was, "For what does your condition matter if it is bad in your own eyes?"
That's at the same page at the bottom, or towards the bottom, yep.
But there was a part earlier in this letter where because this is about on philosophy and friendship, the need for friends, that type of thing. And he said, "A self-sufficient man can do without friends, but does not desire to."
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point.
He gets into many are simply fair weather friends. Natural promptings and what was the other part there? Natural promptings and not his own selfish needs draws him into friendships. That's kind of how he views the ideal wise man. It's just like you recognize that you want friends. You naturally want them, right? It's not, but you should focus on friendships that aren't like you trying to selfishly gain something.
A friendship where it benefits neither party, or rather, the benefits of the friendship are not the goal.
Yeah.
Because a beneficial friendship where the benefits are the goal will die the second there's no benefits.
Well, he talks about a lot. Yeah, he talks about the fair weather friends. A lot of people are there simply because of what they can gain by
Right.
interacting with you, right? So any friend that was prompted by your station or your wealth will disappear the second you no longer have your station or your wealth.
Right.
And anyone who was purchased by you for money is going to be able to be purchased away from you with money.
Mercenary.
Yeah, mercenary friends. That's the best way to describe it. So but I actually do think that one of the better parts in here is about a self-sufficient man can do without friends but does not desire to. That I think actually sums up this letter most accurately, because the quotes that you really like and that I also liked too, those all stem from this concept of, are you content within your own mind? You know what I'm saying? It's like,
Oh yeah.
It's all about how you see yourself, how you see your world around you, and if you can be content or not. And if you're not, no friendship is actually going to improve that.
No sacrifice for the sake of wealth will be adequate. Will be not adequate. Will be equivalent to sacrifice for the sake of friendship.
Yeah, I mean,
because if you sacrifice friendship for wealth, you get neither.
Right. Yeah.
Because
I mean,
wealth will fill the hole of a friendship.
This also goes back to letter 6 about how you should be finding a lot. You should be creating alliances, aka friendships, around honorable desires, and
have a common goal.
Find the people that you have common goals with, because you will have common troubles with you. All of those things, and you'll inherently be friends for deeper reasons than what can I gain from these people. So I like the way we kind of broke up these letters, just because without intending to, we've kind of grouped some together that really feed into each other. Mm-hmm. But I would encourage people to read this one for sure, because
I did enjoy the Stilbo discussion here, where after the guy took the city, I think he captured his children and wife is lost.
Yeah.
Stilbo conquered his conqueror by saying, "I've lost nothing."
Yeah, he's lost nothing, because no good, if it's truly a good, it can't be taken from you.
Yes, that is a good theme for this chapter. Mm-hmm. Truly good things cannot be taken from you.
Because, let's be honest, even though he loses his family, right? They can't take the memory of his family.
They can't take the memory of his family. They can't do, once the family is gone, there's nothing they can do to his family. So there's nothing, they can't take his family again.
Yeah, I mean,
they're gone.
Yeah, they're not even leverage against him anymore.
And, depending on your belief system, that means different things. But regardless, you can't own someone's family. You can try, but you can't own somebody's family. You can't. Once you've taken that from somebody, you can't take it again. It's gone.
Well, I would argue too that the quote saying, besides saying whether he had lost anything, is, "I have all my goods with me."
Right.
And that's the thing. It's like, you have to be self-sufficiently content.
But not necessarily desiring that condition.
It's okay. I think you could describe it as, every human is struggling it's almost like you're drowning, right, in a concept of different desires and mental conditions, right, of just how you perceive things. Everyone's kind of drowning in it. And the concept would be that you can't help another person until you help yourself. So the way that these letters are kind of going is that you need to get your self-control, yourself in order, save yourself before you will naturally then, you should naturally still want friends after that, but you should really fix yourself first.
Do you know what book really reminds me of this aspect, this thought process, is the book of Job.
Yeah, no, it is. It kind of is, yeah.
Like the book of Job really highlights everything he's saying here.
Except guess what? You know what the devil didn't take from Job?
His wife. Even though it never talks about that. And then, the funny meme is like, well, how bad was his wife that the devil decided she could stay?
I know.
So too funny.
But I mean, yeah, this one.
That's one of my favorite Bible memes. How bad was Lot's wife that he left her?
He left her.
But no, that matches up with this thought process here.
It does.
Like, no matter what they took from Job, he was determined to be happy with what he had.
But I mean, I do have to say that the quote there for the one about, for what does your condition matter if it is bad in your own eyes? It's like, yeah, it's true. It's your own.
This is talking about a lot of depression, like people that suffer from
your
depression.
own perception dictates 100% how you're going to feel about something, how you're going to respond to it, right?
No amount of worldly goods will fix depression.
Yeah, if you're a naturally negative person in like the world's out to get me, or it's just complete garbage, instead of being an optimistic person of like, what can we make out of this? You're going to have a way harder life.
Flat out.
Because even if it comes good at the end, you're going to view it in the sense of like, it wasn't what I wanted, versus instead of like, look what I made out of this situation. You know what I'm saying? You're going to be like, you're going to be viewing it still, even if when you overcome it from like a victim mindset, if you have the wrong perspective on life.
Yeah, I think one other thing you could say about this is a slave of vice is not rich, regardless of how much money he has.
But especially because none of those goods can be are with you if you lose everything.
Right. So.
Yeah. Next letter.
Next meme. No, I'm just kidding.
Next meme.
This is called "On Living to Oneself."
Yes.
It's letter 10. It's the last one we're covering for today, and it is, I think, like a page and a half, 2 page. No, it's the 2 pages basically, but it's 3 numbered pages, but the amount of text is like 2 pages.
So this one quote here hit me hard. All right, I thought this was a good one. Know that thou art freed from all desires when thou hast reached such a point that thou prayest to God for nothing except what thou canst pray openly.
As in, like if you have to pray privately for the desire, then it's
you're not free.
Yeah.
If your prayer can't just be said openly, you're not free from all. Yeah, you haven't been freed, because that's something that you're trying to like secretly desire, right? I thought that was a really good quote.
No, that is probably the best text in this letter.
And then there was another one where he says, live among men as if God beheld you. Speak with God as if men were listening.
Yeah, I will say, like, I thought about this one very deeply because, I spent a lot of time doing prayer, and I was curious if, like, after reading this, if my prayers were things that I'd be comfortable saying out loud. And yeah, literally my entire prayer life, I'm happy to say, I wouldn't like put that on other people to listen to me praying, but I'm happy to. I'm not embarrassed about the things I do.
Yeah. I mean, but also it's just one of those things where it's just like, yeah, if you're saying a prayer to God that you would be embarrassed if other people heard it, it's probably kind of a selfish
Probably.
and maybe kind of vicely prayer, you know?
Like you're like cursing your enemies.
No, yeah, it might be
Strike them
that, or you're
down.
just like, or it might be a little bit of a lustful prayer if you're interested in a person. You know what I'm saying? Like things that people have all done at some point, probably in their life.
I mean, just look at the Psalms. Those are David's prayers written down.
Yeah.
King David.
There was another one too that he writes in here. No thoughtless person should be left alone. They plan folly compared to a man who has regard for his real welfare. Which,
well, that's a good point to point out what he said in the last chapter about folly. Let me grab this real quick.
because he's kind of talking about people who are prone to potentially suicidalness. I think that's how I kind of read part of this letter.
Yeah, I want to find this. There was a quote about folly that I almost brought up in the last chapter. Yeah, here it is. It says, "Folly is ever troubled weariness of itself." That was how he ended the last letter, and so he brings up folly again in this letter, and he doesn't do that by accident. He
Because he's talking about people who like when persons are in mourning or fearful about something, and then like about how so okay, this is how it starts before the no thoughtless person should thing. So okay, he says when persons are in mourning or fearful about something, we are accustomed to watch them that we may prevent them from making a wrong use of their loneliness. No thoughtless person ought to be left alone. In such cases, he only plans folly and heaps up future dangers for himself or for others. He brings into play his base desires. The mind displays what fear or shame used to repress. It whets his boldness, stirs his passions, and goads his anger. And finally, the only benefit that solitude confers, the habit of trusting no man and fearing no witness, is lost to the fool, for he betrays himself. It's literally just saying that the person who doesn't really truly think things through is way more prone to suicide. That's how I read that. That's like a whole.
Well, so I wouldn't go straight to suicide, but they're definitely.
Dude, that's totally what it's writing in though, because it stirs his passion, goads his anger.
Yeah, but I think it could be. I think it could be almost not specifically like suicide as in death, but I could also see that as like
it could be drug use. It could be anything.
The killing of oneself in any way. It's not specifically suicide. Like so for example, you torpedo your own career, you torpedo your finances.
Okay,
torpedo your family life. So I would say self-destructive behavior in general is what he's talking about. Because a lot of things can lead to destruction, especially family life.
Based off of because this person's in mourning specifically.
Yeah, I understand.
It comes off as a thing about suicide to me.
I don't know. I mean, some people do really stupid things in mourning that have nothing to do with suicide, but they're still just self-destructive.
Well, because they're doing the mourning or fearful about something. And then it goes into this thing about how the mind displays things that used to be repressed. Mm. And then because you're alone, you get more bold about it, and you don't have anyone to really talk you out of it. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's a runaway train. Momentum carries, and then you betray yourself.
Sure.
But
this one was a really, really short one, so I'm not really sure what else to say about it.
1 second.
The title of the next letter after this one has me excited, though. The Blush of Modesty.
Well, okay, because the part where he talked about the prayers still.
Yeah.
Before the quotes that we really liked, the chapter before. he's just when you
I mean,
have
this is almost like the conclusion of the thought process of the last letter.
yeah,
Because the quote you started this with, the know that thou art freed from all desires when thou
yeah,
hast reached such a point that thou prayest to God for nothing except what thou canst pray for openly, is the natural conclusion to, you know, what has a man gained if they've given up their soul to take the world? Like it's the same
yeah.
idea. It's like if you're willing to sacrifice everything for wealth, what have you gained? But if you need nothing and you desire nothing, you have all the riches you'll ever need.
Yeah, I mean it's also great too because you see a little bit more insight into what he's saying if you look at the chapter paragraph whatever the paragraph before that where he says as for your former prayers you may dispense the gods from answering them, offer new prayers, pray for a sound mind and for good health, first of soul and then of body, and of course you should offer those prayers frequently. Call boldly upon God. You will not be asking him for that which belongs to another. So it's like the prayers that you would be ashamed to ask, like to say with if someone was listening, would be ones that are kind of covetous. You know what I'm saying? Like you're asking for something that is not necessarily yours to ask for.
It's not even good for the soul, probably at that point.
Yeah.
I would say the other thing that people don't do often is order of importance when it comes to prayer. So like if
Right.
your order of importance is not followed into your prayer, it shows you don't have your life is not ordered in a way that makes sense. So like
Yeah.
for example, if the first thing you're praying for is, I don't know, a windfall of money, that's not going to fix the structure of your life. But if you're asking that you be given the strength of faith, this and the safety and then health, it's like, okay, so if you're asking for faith first, that's obviously top, right? You're
Yeah.
asking for safety because without safety, you're not going to be healthy. So obviously the order of magnitude, safety is above health.
Yeah.
And
I
then
mean, I'll
I'm
be
just saying,
honest,
like, for
Chris.
example, like if you're trying to order things in an order of importance, that makes sense.
I'll be honest. I think asking for anything in general. So, okay, when you read the Bible and you're in the Gospels and it talks about like just say the Lord's Prayer type of thing, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That's the only prayer you need. It's explicitly said in the Gospel. Um, my point though is there's almost a security in just saying the Lord's Prayer and trusting God because it's anytime you're asking for something in particular, I feel like it's treating it like a wish counter. And that brings up that type of prayer brings up an extremely dangerous, like, why wasn't this prayer answered type of entitlement thought process that could undermine your faith in a way too.
I disagree entirely with what
I,
you're saying. I'm just letting you know.
you're allowed to. I'm not saying. I'm making the point that I think a
I
lot
think
of
it's more of a be
people.
careful what you wish for, because when you ask God for things, half the time what he says is like, sure, I'll give you a situation that will do this for you, but you have
Yeah.
to meet the trial of the day to get there. So like for
Well,
example, if you're praying for more faith, God might put you in a position where you're despairing
I
and
mean,
so
Chris,
you can
God has
learn
a
faith.
plan. God has a plan for everybody, right? There's a plan for you that He wants you to live, and I think like instead of asking for specific things along that journey, I think people are better off praying to have the strength to actually follow that path. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I'm not disagreeing with you on that,
yeah,
but
I'm
at the
saying
same
like,
time, like, if you're really struggling with something,
no, you're missing my point.
go ahead.
You completely misunderstood what I was talking about for like the wish counter thing.
Okay.
Like, oh, please give me that promotion. Please get like whatever you pray for. If it's
Or
like a
what you're saying
thing,
is rephrase that as, God, please place me in the place I'm supposed to be. Like if that promotion is what you will, then I'll take it. If
yeah,
not, then okay.
yeah. It's like don't pray to be like, oh, please let me win the game tomorrow. Please,
Help me to discern the correct outcome or the correct thing to do.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I feel like a lot of people. That's the thing is, I know you don't. I know you aren't the type of person to think of like praying for the outcome per se as like a specific outcome. You're taught you usually would pray for the strength to whatever the outcome is, because we.
Yeah, weather the storm. Give me the strength to
Yeah,
weather the storm.
that's the thing. So I'm saying that I've heard plenty of people who kind of have the prayer thought process of like asking for the outcome to go a certain way. And I think that's an extremely dangerous way to pray, just because you're kind of setting yourself up to resent every instance where it doesn't go away. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can get that way. I mean, it's very easy to fall into that trap where you're like, okay, I'm praying for this. If God doesn't grant it, I'm going to be an atheist. Like this is the mindset of a lot of people.
Yeah. And that's where that letter, though, I feel like, see, it's weird because these are Stoics, obviously, but
it's very Christian feeling.
Yeah, a lot of their logic's thought process is a good perspective even on Christianity, I think. So it also explains why a lot of Stoics converted to Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's all I was trying to say though, Chris, is that type of concept, you know.
I don't have a lot to disagree with on that.
Yeah.
I was just, as I was saying, was like, if you're praying for something specific and it doesn't happen, there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
And it's up to you to discern what that is. But I think it's important to not tell people to stop praying, because having an open dialogue.
I didn't say to stop praying. I said not. I didn't say to stop praying. I said to not pray for specific things.
Yeah, for specific outcomes, goods.
Like
worldly wealth will not.
If you're in doubt of what to pray for, just ask God to help you have the strength and help guide you on whatever path He sees fit for you. That's it. That's all you have to ask for, really. The Lord's Prayer is basically that. Did we pick a favorite letter last time we did this? I can't remember.
I don't know. My favorite one is definitely, I think, 9, because that's the one where we talk about like what does it benefit a man to have just basically capture the world if he's not happy.
I have to
that's
say
my favorite one.
I think that 9 and 10 are the most insightful of the ones we covered today. I think 7. I wish 7 was more common sense than people have for it.
The crowds one?
Yeah.
That's probably the best day-to-day advice. Avoid crowds.
Yes. I mean, think for yourself is really what it comes down to.
Don't allow the crowd to decide what you think.
Mm-hmm.
Even if the crowd has a good idea, make sure that you keep yourself separate.
So I think 9 might be the deepest one, but as far as like getting to the point on insightfulness, I think 10 is the best one at that.
Probably.
Just from like a self-reflective moment.
Right.
Because even you said that you thought really deeply on this one just because of how he went in through about the like speaking openly type of thing.
Yeah.
About the prayers. If you would, like, if another person.
No, I absolutely did.
Yeah. I think it's the most relatable one there if you're self-reflecting on something like that, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I thought 8 was kind of weak.
We spent a decent amount of time on that one, but
I know.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I don't have anything else to say, except obviously everyone should continue to tune in. Hopefully read along, you know.
Yeah, if you find yourself, even if you join this later, my advice to you is read about 5 letters at a time, listen to our podcast, and self-reflect. Throw a comment down below. Tell us if you
agree. I mean, some of these letters are literally just
shoot. For a book like this, if you want to write us an essay in the comments, I will read it.
I would too.
But
I mean, yeah, it's this is one of those things where it's a fun, thought-provoking read, and the more opinions, the better.
Agreed. So, as always, I'm Chris.
And I'm Andrew. And
this has been part of our Preston Part series, which will continue within the next couple weeks, and then we might take a little hiatus. So, I hope you enjoy it. and we'll see you on the next one.
Bye, guys.